You wake up, check your phone, scroll for a bit, and there it is again. That quiet, uncomfortable thought you've been trying to ignore. Am I falling behind? It doesn't scream. It whispers. When you see someone your age buying a house, when a friend announces a promotion, when another person seems to have their entire life figured out, and suddenly your own life feels blurry, like you're moving, but not really going anywhere. You're not failing exactly. You're just not sure what you're doing. And that might be the scariest feeling of all, because no one prepares you for this part. No one tells you that your 20s, or even your 30s, can feel like standing in the middle of a fog with no clear direction, no map, and no sign that you're even on the right path. So you start asking yourself questions you can't easily answer. What am I doing with my life? Is this the right path? Why does everyone else seem so sure, and I don't? But here's the truth most people won't say out loud. You're not lost because life is confusing. You feel lost because you're avoiding one thing, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's be honest about something. Feeling lost doesn't come from having too many options. It comes from not choosing. You tell yourself you're figuring things out, that you're keeping your options open, that you're waiting for clarity. But what if clarity never comes first? What if clarity only shows up after you commit? Because here's the uncomfortable reality. Every path feels uncertain until you walk it. So instead of choosing, you hover. You research, you plan, you overthink, you watch videos like this one, hoping something will finally click. But deep down, you already know what scares you. It's not making the wrong choice. It's the fact that choosing one path means letting go of all the others. And that feels like loss. Think about it. Every decision closes doors. If you choose a career path, you're saying no to dozens of others. If you commit to one relationship, you're letting go of every other possibility. If you move to one city, you're giving up countless alternative lives. And your brain hates that, because your brain is wired to keep options open. Options feel like safety. Potential feels like control. But potential is also a trap, because potential feels like progress. Without requiring any real risk, you can tell yourself, I could start a business. I could move abroad. I could change careers. And as long as it stays in the could, you never have to face reality. You never have to risk failing. You never have to risk being judged. You never have to find out if you're actually not as good as you hoped. So you stay in this strange middle ground. Not stuck, but not moving either. And from the outside, it doesn't even look that bad. You might have a decent job. You might be doing okay. But inside, something feels off, because deep down, you know you're not fully in. You're half committed, half invested, half alive, and that creates a quiet kind of anxiety. Not panic, just a constant background noise that says, this isn't it. But instead of confronting that feeling, you distract yourself. Endless scrolling, binge watching, overconsumption of content. Not because you're lazy, but because it's easier than facing the one question that actually matters. What do I really want? And am I willing to choose it? Here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Most people don't feel lost because they don't know what they want. They feel lost because they do know, but they don't trust themselves enough to go after it. So they delay. They wait for a sign, for permission, for certainty. But certainty is a myth. No one knows what they're doing at the beginning. The people you think have it all figured out? They don't. They just chose something and committed long enough for it to start working. That's it. Look at any path that looks clear from the outside. A successful career, a stable life, a sense of direction. It didn't start with certainty. It started with a decision, followed by doubt, followed by persistence. But you don't see that part. You only see the outcome, and you compare your behind-the-scenes confusion to someone else's highlight reel. And of course you feel lost. Anyone would. But here's the shift that changes everything. You don't find yourself by thinking. You find yourself by doing. Clarity is not something you wait for. It's something you build. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates direction. Direction creates confidence. But if you never act, you never get feedback. And if you never get feedback, you stay stuck in your head. So let's bring it back to the real reason you feel lost. It's not because you're broken. It's not because you're behind. It's not because you missed your chance. It's because you're avoiding commitment. And avoidance feels safe in the short term. But in the long term, it creates regret. Because years go by faster than you think. And one day, you don't just feel lost. You feel like you never really started. Now, here's the part most people don't want to hear. There is no perfect path. No decision guarantees happiness. No choice removes uncertainty. Every path has doubt. Every path has struggle. Every path has moments where you question everything. So waiting for the right path is pointless. The only thing that matters is choosing a path and staying on it long enough to see what happens. And yes, you might choose wrong. You might fail. You might pivot later. You might realize it's not for you. But that's not wasted time. That's data. That's how you learn what actually fits you, instead of what you think should fit you. Because the truth is, you can't think your way into the right life. You have to live your way into it. So if you feel lost right now, here's a different way to look at it. You're not lost. You're at a decision point, a moment where your life is waiting for you to stop observing and start participating. And that's uncomfortable, because participation requires risk. It requires you to put yourself out there, to be seen, to possibly fail. But it also gives you something you can't get any other way: momentum. And momentum is everything, because once you start moving, things begin to shift. Opportunities appear. People enter your life. New ideas emerge, not because the world suddenly changes, but because you do. You go from passive to active, from waiting to creating. And that changes how you see everything. So here's a simple question. Not, what's the perfect thing to do? But, what's one direction I'm willing to commit to, even if I'm not 100% sure? Not forever, just for now. Because commitment doesn't mean you're locked in for life. It just means you're choosing to take something seriously, long enough to learn from it. And that's the one thing most people avoid. Not effort, not hard work, but commitment. Because commitment forces you to face reality. No more what-ifs, no more endless possibilities, just you and the path you chose. But here's the irony. That's exactly what sets you free. Because when you stop trying to keep every door open, you finally walk through one. And on the other side of that door, you don't find a perfect life. You find direction. And direction is what you've been missing all along. So if you've been feeling lost, maybe it's not a sign that something is wrong. Maybe it's a signal that you are ready to stop circling and start moving. A signal that it's time to choose. Not perfectly, not permanently, just honestly. Because in the end, you're not stuck. You're just avoiding the moment where you decide, this is the path I'm going to try. And once you make that decision, even if it's messy, even if it's uncertain, even if it scares you, you'll notice something almost immediately. That heavy feeling of being lost, it starts to fade. Not because everything is suddenly clear, but because you're finally moving. And that's all you needed to begin with.